Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, a dream dies. Every time you say it's not the right time, a future closes its door. Every time you say, I don't feel ready, an opportunity walks past you and doesn't come back. Excuses aren't harmless, they're expensive. Because every single one of them costs you something. You can never get back a version of your life that could have been real. That book you could have written, that business you could have built, that person you could have become, gone. Not because you weren't capable, but because you let a story be louder than your conviction. And that's the truth most people avoid. You don't lose dreams overnight. You lose them in small, comfortable decisions made in silence. The ones no one sees, the ones no one questions, the ones you justify with clever little phrases like, I'm not ready. I'm waiting for the right moment. I'll start once things calm down. But things won't calm down. No one's going to come push you. No one's going to hand you a written permission slip that says you're finally allowed to become who you were meant to be. Because no one's coming. Not your parents, not your boss, not the algorithm, not the universe. It's on you now. And every time you give your power away to an excuse, you make it harder to get it back. Because excuses don't just delay dreams, they reprogram identity. Every time you hesitate, every time you say not yet, you're casting a vote for a version of yourself who waits. And the more you vote for that version, the more real they become. Until one day you forget what it felt like to believe in action more than avoidance. But here's the part they won't tell you. You can change that right now. Not by yelling affirmations, not by watching more content, not by hoping, but by making a decision so sharp, so final, so clear that every excuse you've ever made gets cut out of your vocabulary like dead weight. You decide, I don't make excuses anymore, I make moves. That's it. No negotiation, no soft exit ramp, no more trying to get back into it. You're either in motion or you're decaying. There is no middle ground. And the second you own that, you become powerful in a way that scares people. Because most people are addicted to their excuses, they worship their limitations, they protect their pain like it's a treasure. Why? Because it's easier to explain than to execute. It's easier to say I couldn't than it is to say I showed up even when it was brutal. But you're not here for easy. You're not here to blend in. You're here to rise, to break cycles, to break patterns, to break your own comfort. Because comfort is a cage, and every excuse you make adds another bar. You'll tell yourself you're being realistic. You'll say I'm just being practical. But what you're really being is afraid. And that fear, it doesn't need to go away before you move. It just needs to get outvoted. By your hunger, by your vision, by your refusal to let one more excuse rob you of your future. Because here's the brutal truth. Every excuse is a decision. Every decision is a vote. And your votes are building either a dream or a prison. So which is it going to be? Because the clock doesn't care. The world doesn't slow down. And the people who succeed, they aren't smarter. They're just done negotiating with delay. They've stopped asking, is this the right time? And started saying, I make it the right time. They've stopped needing guarantees and started building proof. Because the only cure for excuses is evidence. And you don't get that from books. You don't get that from mentors. You don't even get that from inspiration. You get it from movement. You build it when you show up on the day you feel like trash. You build it when you speak, even though your voice is shaking. You build it when you stop choosing stories and start choosing standards. That's when everything shifts. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because the version of you who finally decided I'm done making excuses is the version of you who starts making history. Excuses dress themselves up like logic. That's how they survive. They wear costumes like responsibility, timing, and self-care, but underneath they're all the same thing. Fear dressed as wisdom. And the most dangerous part, you start to believe them. Not because they're true, but because they're familiar. Excuses become habits, and habits become identities. And before you know it, you're no longer a dreamer with potential, you're just a well-reasoned prisoner. You defend your limits like they're your values. You call it protecting your peace when what you're really doing is protecting your comfort zone. Let's break that. Let's call excuses what they are. I don't have time. No, you don't have priority. I'm waiting for the right energy. No, you've built a life where discipline isn't required. I'll start when I feel confident. No, you're waiting for an emotion that only comes after you act. This is how the average stays average. They think they're being thoughtful, but they're really just building shrines to their fears and calling it wisdom. Meanwhile, the ones who win, they move first. They act without needing applause. They show up without needing certainty. They build the plane after takeoff. Because they understand this. The pain of discipline is temporary. The cost of excuses is permanent. You'll forget how tired you were. You'll forget how scared you were. But you'll never forget the regret of knowing you could have changed everything, but you didn't. Because you paused. You stalled. You chose ease and lost everything else. That's the real price of an excuse. It's not just the missed workout, the missed call, the missed task. It's the erosion of your identity. Every excuse you make teaches your nervous system that quitting is safe, that delay is intelligent, that dreams are optional. And over time, you become someone who doesn't just hesitate. You become someone who disappears. But here's what people forget. Excuses don't need to be loud to be deadly. They can whisper, they can smile, they can come wrapped in comfort routine or even self-compassion. But if they keep you from who you could become, they are the enemy. Because excuses are thieves. They don't just steal your time, they steal your truth. They replace who you could be with a watered-down version the world won't even remember. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Because there is always a moment, and maybe this is yours, where you draw the line. Where you say, that's enough. I'm done negotiating with smallness. I'm done carrying excuses like heirlooms. I'm done making room for weakness and calling it kindness to myself. You weren't born to explain your potential. You were born to live it. And if you want to stop making excuses, you don't need more motivation. You need a standard. Because standards are louder than feelings, stronger than stories, more permanent than promises. When you have a standard, you don't need to feel like it, you act like it. Because you said you would, because it's who you are now. That's the cure to excuses. Make who you are louder than what you feel. So when laziness whispers, I'm tired, your identity says we train anyway. When fear says, what if I fail, your identity says we don't fear mistakes, we fear regret. When doubt says you're not ready, your identity says ready is a lie. We go anyway. And when life throws you a dozen perfect reasons to pause, your identity says those are someone else's problems. We build, we move, we don't make excuses. That's the voice you develop when you stop compromising for comfort and start committing to character. That's what separates leaders from spectators, creators from complainers, the remembered from the replaced. You don't need 100 strategies. You don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need someone to come save you. You need one clear standard that says, I do what I said I'd do, whether I feel like it or not, because I refuse to live a life built on excuses. And when that becomes your truth, the world moves out of your way. The moment you kill your excuses, you awaken something ancient inside you, something primal, something powerful, something the world forgot you had. The ability to move without needing a reason, to take the first step without a cheerleader, to keep going without a guarantee, to act with full intensity even when your circumstances are screaming not yet. This is where the transformation happens. When you stop waiting for clarity and start creating it. When you stop begging for motivation and start demanding movement. Because the truth is this, action creates power, excuses drain it. And if you feel stuck right now, if your dream feels far, if your momentum is gone, if your voice has gone quiet, it's not because you lack talent. It's because you've been explaining more than executing. You've been having conversations with your doubt, negotiations with your fear, strategy sessions with your inner critic. And while you've been talking, someone else has been moving, someone else has been building, someone else has been becoming the version of you that you were meant to be. But here's the secret. They're not better than you. They're not smarter. They're just done listening to the noise. They chose one thing over everything else. Movement. And movement is undefeated. Movement silences doubt. Movement breaks patterns. Movement rewires identity faster than any therapy session, journal entry, or pep talk. Because every step forward says something powerful to your nervous system. I am in control now. We don't freeze anymore. We move. No matter what, we move. That's what separates the average from the unstoppable. The average waits for emotions to line up like stars. The unstoppable acts anyway and lets the emotions catch up later. They don't need ideal conditions. They don't need permission slips. They don't need their friends to understand. They move because they understand this simple truth. The version of you you've been waiting to become is waiting on you. Not on a sign, not on a course, not on a partner, not on a bank balance. You, your decision, your standard, your refusal to accept another second of paralysis. Because here's the truth. No one else is as invested in your transformation as you need to be. People love the idea of you changing, but they won't do it for you. They won't stay up at night with your dream. They won't bleed with it. They won't feel that ache in your chest when you know you're meant for more, but keep waking up in a life that doesn't reflect it. Only you know what that feels like. And only you can kill the excuses that keep you stuck in it. And you know what happens when you finally do? You unlock a part of yourself that was buried under years of delay. The part of you that doesn't need external validation. That doesn't shrink to fit. That doesn't apologize for taking up space, moving quickly, setting standards that make people uncomfortable. You unlock you. The real you. The one who knows what they want, who says it with their chest, who moves without needing a perfect plan, who chooses freedom over friction. And that version, they're not motivated. They're hungry. They don't move because they feel good. They move because they know where staying stuck leads. They've been there before. And they're done. Done explaining, done pausing, done waiting for the green light. Because they are the green light now. And when you walk like that, when you move with that energy, you stop being optional. You stop being replaceable. You stop being background noise. You become a signal. A reminder of what happens when someone wakes up and realizes that excuses aren't just annoying, they're lethal. They kill time, they kill creativity, they kill the very thing that makes us human, the ability to choose something greater than our excuses. And the moment you start choosing that daily, you no longer need inspiration, you become the inspiration, not because you post quotes, not because you say all the right things, but because your movement is louder than your explanation. And people can feel it. They feel it in how fast you act. They feel it in how you never stall. They feel it in how your energy says, I am not available for delay anymore. That's the frequency that moves mountains. That's the energy that scares average people because it exposes what they've been hiding behind. And that's what you do now. You move so clearly that every excuse starts to suffocate in your presence. You don't shame people, you don't judge them, but you do set a standard so high that excuses can't breathe around you anymore. Because you've decided, if every excuse costs me a dream, then I will spend no more dreams on explanations. I will spend them on action, starting now. Now the shift becomes permanent, no longer fueled by hype, no longer held up by feelings, no longer swinging between extremes of on fire and burned out. You've moved into something deeper, something unshakable. You're not trying to act powerful anymore, you've become powerful. Because action is no longer a decision, it's who you are now. You wake up and move, you get knocked down and adjust, you face resistance and lean in. And this is where most people fall off. They moved once and thought it was enough. They killed one excuse but didn't build a system to make sure it didn't come back. That's where you go further. Because for you, it's not about the moment, it's about the rhythm. You don't want another motivated day. You want a new lifestyle, one where excuses can't even find room to survive. So how do you build that? How do you become someone who doesn't just act once, but keeps acting, keeps moving, keeps creating until the gap between them and you becomes unreachable? You do it by building what most people never master. A system that doesn't care how you feel. A process that protects your progress. A standard that speaks louder than your emotions. A code that tells your body what to do even when your mind starts spinning. This is how warriors operate. This is how builders build. This is how greatness is sustained. Not by mood, by structure. When you wake up, it's already decided. You don't check in with your feelings, you check in with your mission. Because your calendar isn't a suggestion, it's a contract. And contracts don't get rewritten by emotions. You don't ask, do I feel like creating today? You say, I build because I'm a builder. Not because I'm in the mood. That's power. That's how empires get built. That's how legacies get written. That's how ordinary people become unforgettable. Not by trying to be exceptional once, but by removing the option to not be exceptional. And that doesn't mean perfection. It means movement even when you're messy. It means showing up when you don't know what to say yet. It means launching before the fear finishes talking. Because this is your edge now. You act faster than your fear can build a sentence. You don't let doubt complete its thought. You cut it off with execution. That's your shield. That's your armor. That's what keeps you 10 steps ahead while everyone else is still figuring it out. They wait for alignment. You create it. They look for certainty. You choose it. And when that's your pattern, your excuses don't just weaken. They die. They can't exist in a system that moves too fast for hesitation to catch up. And the more you move, the more you become the proof you used to pray for. You stop needing motivation. You become a magnet. You stop hoping for discipline. You become discipline. You stop explaining your dreams. You embody them. This is the real victory. Not the applause, not the followers, not the results. The quiet knowing that no matter what happens, you will keep showing up. Because excuses were never the problem, identity was. And now your identity says, I'm a creator, I'm a finisher, I'm the one who moves when others freeze. You don't even recognize the old version of you anymore. The one who stalled, the one who hesitated, the one who had dreams but couldn't stop defending the things that were destroying them. That version is gone, buried under 10,000 steps forward, replaced by someone who doesn't stop moving. Because you don't get better by thinking, you get better by building. And the more you build, the more permanent the change becomes. Until one day you look up and realize you haven't made an excuse in months. You haven't negotiated with your potential in weeks. You haven't doubted your standard in days. You've been busy becoming the person you used to dream about. And no one can take that from you because you didn't ask for it. You earned it. With movement, with discipline, with days you didn't want to, with excuses you refused to listen to. And now you're free, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger than your reasons to quit. This is where your power becomes contagious. Because once you've built that inner system, once you've trained yourself to move no matter what people start to notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're unshakable. And that kind of energy, it shifts rooms, It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't beg for attention. It just moves, and suddenly everyone around it starts moving too. Because when you stop making excuses, you don't just change your life, you challenge the people around you. Your example becomes a mirror, and most people don't like what they see. Not because you're judging them, but because your consistency exposes their hesitation. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your movement puts pressure on their comfort. And that's what makes you dangerous, not because you're aggressive, but because you've become undeniable. You don't need to sell yourself. You are the evidence. People can feel the difference between someone who talks big and someone who walks like they've already decided. That's you now. A person of movement, a person of standard, a person who doesn't shrink to avoid making others uncomfortable because you finally realized your life is too valuable to waste on managing other people's expectations. You've got dreams to build, fires to start, generations to impact. And that doesn't happen by apologizing for your pace. You didn't come this far just to slow down for the insecure. You didn't climb this mountain just to explain the view to those who never left the ground. You came to lead, to live, to go first. And now that you've cut off excuses from your own life, you're not just building results. You're building a ripple. Every time you post without overthinking, someone else feels permission to share their voice. Every time you show up when no one's watching, someone else remembers that discipline isn't dead. Every time you choose movement over mood, someone else gets jolted back into who they were born to be. That's legacy. Not fame, not perfection, but impact by example. And here's the best part. You don't need to try to be that, you already are. Because when you stop making excuses, your whole frequency changes. You speak differently, you stand differently. You don't ask questions like, how do I stay motivated? You ask questions like, how can I increase the pace without sacrificing the quality? How can I lead from the front without ever stopping to explain? How can I make this bigger than me without slowing down to seek validation? These are the questions of builders, of leaders, of the ones who leave a dent in history. And you don't have to try to be one of them anymore. You've already become it. You became it the moment you decided that excuses were no longer part of your vocabulary. You became it when you showed up for your mission on the days you didn't feel like it. You became it when you realized that progress is loud and delay is expensive. And now, you're not even tempted by the excuses that once held you hostage. Because your identity has changed, and with it your entire atmosphere has changed. You no longer relate to the version of you who needed to feel ready, who waited for permission, who needed 10 signs to make one decision. Now your existence is the sign. You're the proof. You're the permission. You're the signal that tells the world. We don't stall here. We move, we build, and we don't slow down just because it's hard. That's what makes you a leader. Not a title, not a following, not a number, but the daily unshakable pattern of choosing movement over stories, over fears, over feelings. And once you build that pattern deep enough, you'll be amazed at what starts moving towards you. Opportunities you used to chase, they find you. People you used to try to impress, they now study your rhythm. The version of you who once begged for direction now gives it without raising your voice. Because you don't speak from theory, you speak from embodiment. You don't tell people what they should do. You just show them what it looks like to not stop. And that's the loudest kind of power there is. The kind that moves without noise, the kind that pulls the world forward by example. The kind that doesn't ask, is it possible? It already decided, I am the proof. There's a certain silence that surrounds those who've stopped making excuses. It's not empty, it's not timid, it's charged. You walk into a room and people feel it. Not because you're loud, but because your presence says what your words don't need to. It says, I move regardless, I build regardless, I finish what I start. That kind of energy is rare. Because most people are still negotiating, still explaining, still building stories to cover the holes in their action. But you've crossed a threshold. You've stopped outsourcing accountability. You've stopped looking for comfort in community. You've stopped asking, does this make sense, and started declaring, this is what I'm building. That's the shift that creates movement in other people without you needing to say a word. Because now your calendar is the sermon, your execution is the message, your momentum is the microphone, and it speaks loud. People begin to copy your pace, mirror your intensity, borrow your phrases. They want the confidence you now wear as normal. But here's the secret. You didn't wake up with this, you earned it. Every time you refused to let an excuse make decisions for you, every time you chose structure over softness, every time you honored the promise to move, even when comfort was begging you to stop. You built this version of yourself in the dark. And now the world sees the light, but they'll never understand the weight you carried to get here. The doubts you silenced, the lonely decisions, the weekends no one saw, the hours spent building when no one was watching. But you know, and that's what matters. Because you're not here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for the standards that set you free. If they feel too much, they were never meant to lead. If they question your pace, they've already disqualified themselves from the race. Because you're not running for applause anymore, you're running for impact. You're not proving you can move. You're becoming the reason others do. And when that becomes your lens, your excuses don't just die, they become unrecognizable. You stop relating to the part of the world that says, maybe later, let's see how it goes, I'm just waiting on clarity. Because you've realized clarity is earned in movement, confidence is born in action, greatness is built in momentum. And momentum doesn't wait for consensus. It doesn't pause for overthinking, it doesn't stop because someone's uncomfortable. It moves, and it moves through you now. Because you've removed all the friction, all the apology, all the softness that once shielded you from rejection, but also shielded you from success. And now you're moving with clean energy, with sharp decisions, with unapologetic direction. You don't make announcements, you make progress. You don't seek permission, you seek precision. You don't tolerate detours, you design the map. And people feel the difference. Because while the world is still making excuses, you've built too much proof to ever go back. You don't relate to one-day thinkers. You've lived too many this-day moments. And that's your edge now. You've built so many wins that it's no longer about motivation, it's about movement maintenance. It's about staying sharp, staying fast, staying too focused to ever be caught again, because the world never slows down, and you don't need it to. You're moving faster than hesitation can catch you. And the more you do that, the more you become the culture shift. You become the reason someone wakes up earlier, works harder, decides to finally begin. Because they saw you, not in a viral clip, not in a highlight reel, but in the quiet repetition of a person who no longer needs reasons to move forward. That's who you are now, and no one can unmake that. Because when you remove excuses, what's left isn't just discipline, it's purity. A clarity of purpose so sharp that it pierces through confusion, fear, and fatigue. And what remains, you, the builder, the leader, the one who moves without flinching, the one who no longer asks, can I? You replaced it with, try and stop me. Look back not to dwell, but to witness the shift. To remember how far you've come since the days when you lived by hesitation, when you let your feelings decide your future, when you let comfort steal your calling. That version of you, they meant well, they dreamed, they tried, but they didn't know what you know now. Excuses don't just delay dreams, they kill identity, because every time you didn't move, you taught your brain that staying still was safer. You trained your body to freeze. You told your life, I'm okay with less. And maybe for a while you were. Maybe the comfort was enough. Maybe the excuses made sense. Maybe survival was the only thing you could manage. But not anymore. Because now you've seen what happens when you move no matter what. You've felt what it's like to act without certainty, to build without applause, to hold your standard even when no one's watching. You've traded softness for steel, delay for direction, excuses for execution. And now you walk differently. Not because you've arrived, but because you've awakened. You're not just trying to escape your old patterns. You've outgrown them. You've built too much proof to ever doubt again. You've made too many promises that you actually kept. And now excuses don't even fit in your vocabulary anymore. You've buried them in repetition, in sweat, in late nights, in early mornings, in every silent moment where you could have given yourself an out, but instead gave yourself a future. This is what power feels like, not volume, not ego, but clarity. And when you carry that kind of clarity, you stop chasing dreams, you start finishing them. Because now you know the real cost of excuses. It's not just missed time, it's not just a few dollars lost, it's not even about what people think. It's about who you never became. Every excuse costs you a piece of that version of you. The one who walks in full command, the one who creates without doubt, the one who lives so loudly in truth that the world adjusts to their frequency. That version, they were always there, but they were buried. Under every maybe later, under every I'm not ready, under every fake obligation, false story, and carefully crafted justification for why you should wait one more day. But now you've dug them out, and it wasn't a dramatic moment, it was daily movement. It was choosing differently 100 small times when no one else was watching. That's how rebirth works. Not all at once, but over time, over tension, over consistent refusals to go back. You said no to quitting so many times that it eventually stopped asking. And now your new identity is locked in. You're not just someone who tries hard. You're not someone who wants it badly. You're someone who executes relentlessly. Because you understand, desire without discipline is a decoration. Discipline without excuses is destiny. You've stopped needing more information. You've become the application. You've stopped waiting for ideal conditions. You are the condition. You've stopped looking for the right path. You built it. And now the road behind you is paved with every moment you refused to make an excuse and every step forward you took anyway. That's not a trend. That's not a phase. That's not a motivational spurt. That's you now. The real you. The one who moves first, moves fast, and never ever lets an excuse steal what's already yours. Because you know what it took to get here, you know what it would cost to go back. And you've decided, no price is higher than losing the person I fought this hard to become. So now you know. You've outlived your excuses, outrun your old identity, outbuilt the voice that once told you you're not ready, and now you stand on something unshakable. Not just confidence, but conviction. Because confidence is how you feel, but conviction is who you've become. And who you are now, you don't just reject excuses, you don't even entertain them. There's no seat at your table for delay, no audience in your mind for doubt, no space in your schedule for softness. You've built your life like a fortress, and inside it only clarity, movement, and mission survive. This is when you become inevitable. Because it's not that life gets easier, it's that your mind becomes untouchable. You wake up with direction, you breathe with urgency, you build with a focus that can't be faked. Not because you're chasing something, but because you refuse to sit still. Not because you need motivation, but because you've outgrown the version of you who needed it. You're not just on fire, you are the fire. And people can feel it. They stop asking what drives you because the answer is obvious. You're driven by a decision you made long ago. That no excuse would ever steal a dream from you again. That's the line. That's the legacy. That's what separates those who wish from those who build. And now, you've entered rare air, where most slow down you speed up, where most coast you conquer, because you've earned too much pain to ever play small again. You've sacrificed too many quiet nights, too many hard mornings, too many invisible battles to ever hand your life back to maybe later. Your standard is permanent now, and it whispers every time an old excuse knocks on your door. We don't live there anymore. You've moved on. You've moved up. And everything around you now, your schedule, your habits, your circle, it reflects the new rule. No more stories, no more waiting, no more self-betrayal. Only forward, only now, only everything you were always meant to be. Because the person who used to pause, to overthink, to let moments pass is gone. Buried under days of action, replaced by someone who moves first, moves fast, and never slows down long enough for excuses to catch up. And you're not just doing it for yourself anymore. You're doing it because the world needs to see what's possible. You're doing it for the person watching in silence, praying, someone proves that it can be done, that freedom is real, that momentum isn't reserved for the chosen few. You're doing it because legacy isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in repetition, in grit, in pressure, in all the tiny decisions you made when no one clapped, but you moved anyway. And now, the results are undeniable, the pace is uncatchable, the standard is non-negotiable. Because you decided not once, but every day since. If an excuse cost me a dream, then excuses have no place in my life. And now everything that isn't aligned with that gets left behind. You're not looking back. You're not slowing down. You're not waiting. You're building a future that only movers get to see. And from this point forward, you don't live in doubt. You live in momentum, in movement, in mastery. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. And you earned it by doing the one thing that 99% of the world never will. You killed your excuses and you chose the dream instead. This is where it ends, and this is where it begins. Because this isn't just the close of a message, it's the start of a movement. A movement that begins with you, not with followers, not with $1 million brand, not with the world clapping for your ideas, but with a decision, a single irreversible decision to stop letting excuses design your destiny, to stop playing defense in a life that demands offense, to stop reacting to pressure and start applying it, to stop asking, am I good enough, and instead declaring, I'm done negotiating, I've made up my mind, I will move forward even if I have to do it alone. Because most people won't understand. They'll watch you shift, they'll feel the distance growing, they'll hear the silence as you pull away into purpose, into rhythm, into a level they were never brave enough to follow you to. And that's okay. Because you didn't come here to be understood, you came here to become undeniable. You came here to build what only action can earn. No more sharing memes about motivation. No more talking circles around what you're going to do. No more idolizing people who did the work while you're still writing to-do lists in the dark. You are done with that version of yourself. The one who sat in rooms full of potential and left empty-handed because of one excuse too many. From this moment forward, there is only one truth. Every excuse costs you a dream, and you are done paying that price. You will not pay with your time. You will not pay with your energy. You will not pay with your potential. Not anymore? You've paid enough already. You've already buried too many visions, already watched too many versions of yourself fade into silence, into regret, into forgotten pages of what might have been. But now you move like someone who remembers why they started. Now you build like someone who no longer needs to explain. Now you lead not by force, but by fire. Because fire doesn't ask for attention. It simply burns. It consumes. It clears the path for what must come next. And what comes next A life so full of clarity, so grounded in conviction, so free from hesitation that the only question left is, how far can I go now that I don't wait anymore? And the answer, as far as your consistency can carry you, as far as your courage is willing to stretch, as far as your execution refuses to stop. There are no limits now. Only decisions, only steps, only you versus you every single day. And the version of you that wins is the one who keeps moving no matter what. So here it is. Your final reminder, your final trigger, your final line in the sand. You have no more excuses. You have no more time. You have no more need for another someday. All you have is now, this second, this moment. Every excuse costs you a dream. So choose wisely and start building the one you'll never need to run from again.